Show yourself, Obelisk the Tormentor!
Shadow game as I call your name! Winged Dragon of Ra! I summon the almighty Slifer, the Sky Dragon!
What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you an Ogdoadic Chaos profile. Now this is actually an Ogdoadic Chaos profile. I've seen a lot of these on the internet, and a lot of them have been, oh well, all I'm doing is playing White Wyvern Buster, Black Collapse and a Chaos Base. No, that's not a Chaos version, this is a Chaos version. It works incredibly well. There are a couple little points in here that I will highlight throughout the profile. But, so we can dive straight first into this, first of all, please smash that like button, hit the notification bell and subscribe. If you get it up to at least 50 likes, I will do either a duel or test hands showing off this profile and exactly what it is. Secondly, a massive shout out to Yourplaymat, who made me these custom sleeves, and they fit perfectly. I've even put the KMC outer sleeves around them as well. If you want to get your own custom sleeves, you can use my affiliate link in the description below. Not only does that support the channel, but it also allows you to get some sick sleeves. Now, whether you've got your own artwork you would like on them, or whether you want to be using some of their own artwork that they have on their website, check it out. You can also get mats done there as well. With all of that out of the way, let's dive headfirst in the Ogdoadic Chaos profile. Oh, I wish these were still called Abyss. Anyway, so we start off with the big boss monsters. Now, as you see, and as we'll go through it, each of the monsters, apart from the main deity, has a light and a dark version. So, what I mean by that is we start off with the one around the Ogdoadic King. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see these a little bit more clearly. And then its counterpart is the Ogdoadic Queen. Now, I didn't pull a Queen and I didn't pull the big Abyss guy, so I've had to proxy them just for this profile. But that's not the end of the world, because I actually think that the King is probably one of the better ones. Anyway, King's effect is, if this guy's in the graveyard, you attribute 2 monsters to special summon this card. If your opponent adds a card or cards to their hand, except during the draw phase or damage step, you get to send 1 random card from their hand to the graveyard. If a monster or monsters your opponent controls is sent to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you get to add 1 light or dark reptile monster from your deck or graveyard to the hand, except itself, and you can only use the effect once per turn. Now, to me, that is incredibly consistent in the sense that 9 times out of 10 your opponent will add a card, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to be sending a monster from the field. That's the best part about it, is it just says send. So if they link it off, if they do anything, you can then trigger the Ogdoadic King to then give you a free search. Now, the Queen, on the other hand, shares the same summoning mechanic that it does need to require to tribute 2 monsters to special summon it. But if a monster or monsters is special summoned from your opponent's graveyard, except during damage step, you can send 1 card your opponent controls to the graveyard. If a monster or monsters is sent from your opponent's hand or deck to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon a light or dark reptile monster from your graveyard, except itself. So this is a little bit less consistent to the King, because, okay, the send is probably going to happen. They're probably going to be bringing cards back from the graveyard. But the secondary effect that you need to trigger from hand, which means you need to have both of these on the board, or another one of the reptiles that's going to rip from your opponent's hand to then trigger the effect. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think the Queen is going to be as effective. And depending on the strategy you're playing, you might actually want to put King at 2 and just keep Queen out of it. But that comes down to your personal preference and your personal playstyle, so that's something for you guys to think about when you're putting the deck together. The final main boss card, and then we'll get onto the sub-boss cards, is of course the Deity. Now, all of these 3 cards are the Ultra cards. They're sitting around, if you were on tier 0 early enough, they were sitting at about £8 each, which was a great buy. I think in America they're sitting around $15 each. They will go down over time, but I just think that the Ogdoadics have more splashability for like Invoke, Light Swans, Chaos, you name it. Incredibly fun deck, and which is why I've put it together. Anyway, so Abyss, if this card's in the graveyard, you contribute 3 monsters to special summon this card. Once while face up on the field, quick effect, you can send all monsters on the field to the graveyard except face up monsters that were special summoned from the graveyard. Now, you don't really want to be using those 3 tributes. You want to be cheesing this guy out. Now, the ways you can cheese this out is you can cheese it out using the Ogdoadic Lotus Flower, but you can also cheese it out using stuff like the Geras and any kind of Monster Reborn or anything like that. So that's what you ideally want to do with the Deity. You don't want to lose all of your pieces, and you can can cheese out the other two cards, but these are a little bit more sustainable to do, especially in the Chaos version when you're literally just pumping the board full of monsters. Then we move on to the other lower level. So this is where you've got the counterparts again, is you've got Alarit and you've got Curse. Now, apologies if I butchers the name, but you know this by now, I'm very, very bad with names. So, the dark one is if this card's in the graveyard, tribute one monster to special summon it, then your opponent can add one monster from their graveyard to the hand. Ugh. But if this card is special summoned, you get to target 2 of your banished monsters, including a reptile monster, and return them to the grave. So that's kind of good for the Chaos engine because you are putting a lot in your banished zone. But because we are playing the spicy engine that I love playing in all my Chaos decks, you don't really need to rely on that effect as much. It's just there as another dark reptile name. Now, Curse is a little bit better, but it does give your opponent a little bit more of a better bonus. So again, if it's in a graveyard, tribute one monster to special summon it, then your opponent can special summon one monster from the graveyard but negate its effects. If this card is special summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Ogdoadic monster in your graveyard and special summon it but banish it when it leaves the field. So this is how you get 2 monsters on the board straight away that you can then use as tribute fodder. You've got to keep in mind that the Ogdoadic you're bringing back is going to get banished, and it's a shame that it has to be level 4 or lower because it would have been nice to cheese out the Abyss, but that is just the way it works. It does give you ample rank 8 plays with these 5 cards here, and we are playing Diablos, spoiler, but I'll explain why we're playing Diablos a little bit later on when we get to him. Then we move on to the bread and butter cards, and that is of course Nunu, and we've also got Neu. And now again, apologies if I butchered the names, but you know what you're getting. So with the Nunu, which is the light one, you can send this card from the hand to the graveyard to send one dark reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. Now straight away, that sets up your big Chaos plays. No messing about with your little Chaos plays to get them in the board, get them in the grave. Straight away, you just go, right, cool, there's a light and dark, do whatever you want to do with them. Its other effect as well is if you control no monsters or you control an Ogdoadic monster, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. So the only time you're really going to want to use that effect is if you're going to overlay it for rank 4 because then it doesn't get banished. You're only going to be able to special summon it once per turn, and the other clause is while it is on the field, you can't special summon anything else except reptile monsters. So straight away, you're going to need to link it off, or you're going to need to overlay it into your King of Feral Imps in order to kind of get you out of that restriction, which is nice because it's kind of like LP. It doesn't lock you for the rest of the turn; it just locks you while it's on the board, and you can only use each effect once per turn. Now the Nauya, you can send this card from the hand to the graveyard, send one light reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard, again setting up your Chaos plays. If this card is normal or special summoned, you get to add an Ogdoadic spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So this is where you combo off quite nicely with the Curse, because then Curse can then bring this back, and then this one lets you bring or add the Lotus Flower. If you play more of the spells and traps for the Ogdoadics, then by all means you can add those as well, but the Lotus Flower is probably the best option for you. Then moving on to the other core cards, you've got 2 Zohar, I really want to call it Zohan, and then one that Flogos. Now the Flogos, again, I think is terrible, but you kind of need it, and these are the light and dark counterparts to each other. So the Zohar is if this card is sent from the field specifically to the graveyard, or special summoned from the graveyard, you get to activate this effect. Your opponent draws 1 card, and if you do, you get to add an Ogdoadic monster from your deck to your hand, except itself, and then each player sends 1 card from their hand to the graveyard. If this card's in the graveyard, you can send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to add this card back to your hand, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So it gives you that ability to get you a direct search for an Ogdoadic, but it does give your opponent a random draw. Sometimes that random draw could be everything they need, sometimes it could be a brick, so it really depends on how risky you're feeling. Now the Flogus, again, if it's sent from the field specifically or special summon from the graveyard, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and 1 monster in their graveyard with an equal or higher attack than that target. Special summon the monster from the graveyard and then send the one that was on the field to the grave. You can send 1 card from your hand to the grave to add this card back to your hand. Now the reason I don't like that is because you're giving them back a stronger monster, which is sometimes fine, depending on what you're taking away. The issue is it targets the monster on the board. Now if it was target a monster in the graveyard with higher or lower attack, but not one on the board, then that would allow you to get past stuff like Dragoons and everything like that, which I think would make it a much better card. Still a very good card, but I don't think it's as important as the rest. We've then got 2 Diablos. Now, I'm not playing Lair. The reason we're playing Diablos is because a lot of your cards say Tribute 1, Tribute 2. Now, obviously, if you're tributing a Dark Monster, that is where Diablos becomes a free level 8 summon, which then means you've got instant rank 8 plays, or you've got the ability to link climb up, or if you're feeling really, really spicy, you can rip a card with this, and then you can rip a card or 2 cards, one card with your Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. So you're kind of utilising your Chaos Engine to help you out a little bit more as well. If you do want to go for the Lair of Darkness version, by all means you can do that as well, give you a bit more consistency. The only kind of question mark that sits over this deck is you play so many high level monsters that it can be a bit risky. And you'll see so when we go through the Chaos Engine right now, because we're playing Chaos Creator and Chaos Dragon Legionnaire. I think these are the 2 best level 8 Chaos monsters. Obviously Legionnaire can abuse all lights, all darks, or a mixture of both, and Chaos Creator can do lights and darks. Now, Chaos Creator, the best thing about this is it lets you special summon one of them that is banished. So if you're banishing through their own effects, or if you're banishing through Chaos Space or anything like that, you can then bring back the Ogdoadics, and those Ogdoadics can then trigger their effects. The Ogdoadics are light and dark, so they do also get sent from the hand with Chaos Space as well. We've got, of course, White Wyvern Buster and the Black Collapse Serpent. These are, again, a little bit interesting in this deck because you can use them as fodder to send from the field and then trigger their effects. But the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be locking yourself into being able having to make rank 4 plays. Now, keep in mind, the rank 4 of King of the Feral Imps is perfect. You can use it just as much, but you won't get the search effect when this is sent. But with the link to the Reptile, the Alien Shock Trooper, again, it requires 2 Reptiles. So he's not going to help you with that, but they'll help you with the more generic stuff. One thing that you could put in the extra deck that I haven't is Striker Dragon. Just so for those occasions when you only open up one of these, you summon it down, turn it into Striker Dragon, get the other one, and straight away you've got the ability to go into a link 2. Then the Spicy Engine, which I love playing in all my Chaos decks right now, is triple Nemesis Flag, 1 Nemesis Corridor, and 1 Arch Nemesis Yugioh. Now again, as I said in my Thunder Dragon profile, the Yugioh can be Protoss if you want it to be, but the reason that I've gone with this engine, and in turn, it is a 41 card deck, so if you wanted to cut these cards out completely, put in Ash Blossoms or anything like that, you can do. Another one I was thinking about is Pot of, I think it's Acquisitiveness, the one that targets 3 of your banished monsters, put them back into the deck, draws 1. Now, the reason I've gone with this route is because Corridor gives you another level 4, and that level 4 then lets you recycle your Banished Flag or Yugioh, should that happen. Obviously, if you go with Protoss, because it is a Dark, that's where a Lord of Darkness becomes even more important for the deck. But the idea is that with Flag, after you've done all your Banished plays off of Chaos, off your Chaos Engine or anything like that, you can then play Flag to put them back into the deck, bring Flag down. Flag gives you a search for Corridor if you want to bring back an extra Banished one, or a Yugioh if you want to be able to lock your opponent out. And this just kind of gives you a lot to play around with. The best thing about this as well is the Yugioh will use its effect to call types, so like Dragon, or it can call Lights or Darks or anything like that, depending on what you turn it into from Reaperdonkus. If you wanted to and you play the Lair of Darkness, I still think this is a good engine for them. I think the Lair of Darkness is a lot more control-based, and I think this is a lot more aggression. But yeah, so Corridor to help your rank 4 plays, Flag to be an extra body on board for Link Summons and to get you a Yugioh, and a Yugioh because you're playing Reptiles, Thunders, Pyro, Psychics. You've also got the Dragons as well. You've got so many different types to get a Yugioh on the board, and just being able to trigger the Yugioh really locks your opponent down. Then for the hand traps, I thought the best hand trap, I did start with Ash Blossom, but then I thought about it and I was like, hang on, our best cards in the deck, which are beyond broken, is Snake Rain and Chaos Space. And it's kind of like, damn, like if they get ashed, it really sucks because the Snake Rain you're discarding as cost, the Chaos Space you're sending as cost as well. So you're already going to be -2 if it gets ashed. So I was like, do I want Ash Blossom in this space, or do I want to go up to a 41 card deck and go with Gammas? And the best thing about this, again, Psychics, so it's a different type in the graveyard, and then Lights as well, so it's another light attribute for your Chaos plays if they don't get banished. If you want to be going into your Synchro monsters, you could put in the Chaos Dragon, what is it, Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, there we go, I'll get it eventually, into the extra deck. But ideally, the way I'm playing this, rather than putting a Synchro monster in that I may or may not create, I'm just going to be using it to make my generic Link 2s. Speaking of the most broken card, which is now actually playable in a Reptile deck, is triple Snake Rain. So you discard a card, send 4 Reptile monsters from your deck to the graveyard. So the best thing about this is the discard from the hand can be a Chaos card. The discard or the send from the deck can be Lights and Darks, again setting up your Chaos plays. But it also sets you up your Ogdoadic plays as well. Keep in mind that off of the 5 you're going to send, one of the cards you're going to want to send is you're going to want to send, where are you? You're going to want to send your Noya, you're going to want to send your Nunu, and you're going to want to send your curse. And the reason you would do this is because the Nunu, if you control no monsters or an Ogdoadic, will summon itself back. You can then use the curse's effect to tribute the Nunu, and that will then bring the curse onto the board. Curse will then trigger to bring back the Nayu, and Nayu will then trigger to give you your Lotus. And then off of that little play there, you're already going to have, if you discarded a serpent anyway, or a reptile, sorry, you're going to have 5 different reptiles in the graveyard. So it does mean that or even if you don't, the Lotus, or I keep calling it Lotus, it's Lily, but the Lily would then be a discard or send a reptile from your deck to graveyard, so it's Foolish Burial. And then because you're going to have 5 different reptiles in the graveyard, you can Monster Reborn it. So it's a free extender. And that's just a very minimal combo from Snake Crane plus a discard. Not to mention if the rest of your cards in your hand, like Chaos Space or anything like that, or Chaos Monsters, you're good to go. For the Chaos, of course, Chaos Space, not much more needs to be said about that. Send a light or dark from your hand to the graveyard to add a light or dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set. Banish it to target one light or dark monster that cannot be normal summoned or set. Put it to the bottom of the deck and draw a card. For the other draw engine, I went with Trading. Now, you can either go with Trading or a Lore. The reason I went with Trading is because more of my cards that are level 8s actually want to be in the graveyard. The reason I would go with a Lure of Darkness is because you can play a Lure of Darkness on its own and just play a Blind Allure. Whereas Trading needs that level 8 monster. So it can be a bit of give and take. It does come down to personal preference. I wouldn't advise playing stuff like Extravagance or Prosperity in the Chaos version because it does clash heavily with Chaos Space and you actually want to control your extra deck, which you'll see when we get to it. Which is why I think Trading is a little bit of a better option. And if you do side in a Kaiju engine, of course Trading will help you out there as well. We've then got 2 Ogdoadic Water Lily. So this one you get to send a reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then if you have 5 or more reptile monsters with different names in your graveyard, you can special summon 1 reptile monster from your graveyard. Only activate 1 Water Lily per turn. Now the reason I've put Lily at 2 is for that exact clause. You can only activate it once per turn. And if I resolve the Snake Rain combo, I'm going to be searching it anyway. Then by activating the Water Lily, if I've put the big Abyss monster in the graveyard, my board is technically going to end with 2 reptile monsters already, plus the Abyss monster, that have all come from the graveyard. So I've got a free Dark Hole that doesn't destroy but sends. And even if I don't want to do that, I could then either make an IP Masquerena, I could make an Alien Shock Trooper, I could pretty much make a Reaper Donkus if I wanted to as well. Yes, whatever I do summon will be sent off of the big Abyss monster, but if I play other routes that way, or if I just wanted to make the BLS link, you're covered in that area. Then we've got the 1 Monster Reborn, because, you know, Monster Reborn is a little bit better than Lily because you don't need to have these setups or requirements, and technically it's not once per turn. So you could activate a Water Lily and a Reborn. The final card is Reasoning. I love this again in all of my Chaos decks. I don't understand why people undervalue this card so much. We are playing in this deck. Yes, we're playing a lot of 8s, but half of the 8s actually want to be in the graveyard, so it's a nice Foolish Burial for them. We're playing 4s. We're also playing cards that can't be normal summoned or set. We're playing 5s and we're playing 2s. We're playing a Shatos, which is like 10 or 11, I believe. So you're not always going to consistently resolve it and get the summon off. But you've got a very balance between 8s and 4s, so there's a 50-50 chance that your opponent's going to call it wrong. Then on top of that, you're just going to Foolish Burial Lights and Darks for your graveyard for your Chaos Space from 1 card. So it does everything it says on the tin. One card I want to give a shout out to before we move on to the extra deck is Offering of the Snake Deity. I didn't realise how cool this card is. It's like Shiranui's Swallow Slash. So you target a face-up reptile monster you control and 2 cards your opponent controls. Destroy all 3 targets. So it's kind of a nice little route as well that allows you to clear off a bit of boards. But it's just a card that is a cheap alternative should you want to go more control-based. Moving on to the extra deck, we've got a a nice easy balance between XYZs and Synchros. And again, massive shout out to Yourplaymat for these awesome custom Zephyr Wargame sleeves. I can't decide if I want to have the, once the camera wants to focus, I can't decide if I want to have the border going around the card or if I want the border to go around the artwork on the back. So really cool job. I sent them a very, very simple artwork and they was able to print it with me. They won't do like Yu-Gi-Oh artworks because of copyright reasons, but they do have some amazing artwork of their own. And like I said, if you want to help out the channel, use the affiliate link down below, and that helps out massively. Anyway, we start off with King of the Feral Imps. Requires 2 level 4 monsters, and then you get to detach a material once per turn and add a reptile monster. So, gives you the searchability of cards that you might need. Also, it's a nice, easy way to get Nunu off the board, because it's just a generic rank 4. Then Abyss Dweller, generic rank 4. Oh, and it's a reptile, so very important on that one. And it's dark, so another plus. Abyss Dweller, generic rank 4, standard. Daenerys, again, generic rank 4, but what this allows you to do is it allows you to cheese out the big reptile Abyss, but it also gives you either additional draws or clears out your hand, anything you need to. Then we've got a small rank 8 engine, so we've got the one number 7 Draglabon, and then if you're going defensive, you go with Hope Harbinger. If you're going offensive, you go with number 100 Numeron Dragon. So just a little engine. If you wanted to change it up, you could do. If you wanted to go more rank 8 focused, you can do. But the way I see it is the only rank 8s I'm going to put to the board that I don't want to stay on the board are either going to be Diablos, which I want to tribute to rip one from my opponent's hand. Levianeer Dragon, which after he uses its effect, it's not going to be able to attack, so I want to use it as material to get somewhere. You could put in stuff like Zombie Stein as well. But I think this is probably the most minimum rank 8 engine you could play because it just gives you that best option. Like there's protection on the Dragulabon, and then you've got the defense of Hope Harbinger and the offense of Numeron Dragon. Moving on to the Link monsters. Now the Link monsters, again, I kind of went a different route from a lot that I was seeing, and I'm actually quite happy that I did. So, for the Link 2s, we've got the one IP Masquerena, which will lead into your Nightmare Cerberus, your Nightmare Phoenix, and your Nightmare Unicorn. So I'll just get this little engine out of the way. They're dark off of the Unicorn, dark off the IP, but it's more about that ability to discard cards in the hand that you want into the graveyard to then trigger an additional effect, whether it be pop a monster, spin a card, or pop a back row. The other Link 2, of course, we've got Reaperdonkus. This is purely in here because it's a very easy monster to make. It's generic. And then straight off the back of this, your Ashatos can become anything. It can become Fiend, Dino, Dragon, you name it. If you know what you're playing against, it will lock your opponent out for an entire turn. And because you've got so many power plays in your Ogdoadics as well, you're then going to be able to swing the game next turn. Another card that, as soon as this deck was announced, I was like, hell yeah, this card is now actually playable, is Alien Shock Trooper M-Frame. Now, it does require specifically 2 reptile monsters, so it can be very, very specific to make. But, quick effect, you can discard one monster specifically, place A counters equal to the original level of face-up monsters on the field. Give me 2 seconds, let me bring it closer so I can actually see. On the field, distributed as you wish. If this card is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, so it doesn't need to be destroyed by your opponent's card effect or by battle specifically. You can run it in yourself, or you can destroy it with your own card effect, which is the downside of the big Abyss monster, is that it doesn't destroy, it sends. But if it is destroyed, you can special summon non-link reptile monsters with different names from the graveyard up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with A counters on. Only use the effect once per turn. So the idea is that whatever you've discarded as a quick effect, you've put A counters equal to its original level on face-up monsters. So if I discard a level 8, I get to put 8 A counters on the cards. Now ideally all you're probably going to want to do is a maximum 5, maybe 6 if they've completely filled their board. But the idea would be that if M-Frame goes, you then get to go, excellent, bring back all of my Abyss monsters or the Ogdoadic monsters. If I bring back the big boss monster, keep in mind the boss monster is once while it's face up on the field. So if it leaves the field and comes back, as long as you can use this effect again, you could then send the entire board again. Plus, off of the effect of M-Frame, everything coming back from your side will be from the graveyard. So they're all going to stay and wall up. Not to mention that half of your cards will then trigger their effects as well. Just double checking that it doesn't negate their effects. No, half of your monsters can then trigger their effects as well, and that's where you can start ripping from your opponent's hand, sending cards they control, you name it. Then of course we've got the BLS Link monster because we're playing a lot of level 8, so you've got the boss monsters there. We've then got Appaloosa for your all out and out defensive Link 4, and you've got Access Code for your out and out aggressive Link 4 because you are playing Earth's, Lights, Darks, Fires, Earths, you name it. Another kind of card that you can kind of consider when you're looking at stuff like this, depending on the route you want to go, is you've got stuff like Borrelsword, while I take out the camera, you've got stuff like Borrelsword. You can go more for a control variant and play more traps. You can. This is the best thing about Abyss, which is why I love it, is it actually has a lot of variation. So if I wanted to, you could play Invoked in here. You could play Lair of Darkness, which a lot of people have talked about as well. You can play Light Swans, which means you're going to instigate more synchro plays. It is really up to you on how you would want to play this deck. And that's the beauty of it, is it's not restricted by anything more than just, as long as you have a deck that either likes abusing Light and Darks or likes abusing the graveyard, you're pretty much good to go with this deck, which I think is absolutely amazing. Plus, like I said, I picked up this all really, really cheap. So I think I must have paid, because you only need like one of the big boss monsters. So apart from the Chaos cards, and even then they're relatively cheap, I was paying like £8, £8 to £7 on each of the Ultras, and you only need to get one of each. So straight away you've already got the boss monsters that you need. You've already got most of the deck, considering the Super's like £1 to 50p. You're good to pretty much go from that point on. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like I said at the start of the video, if you smash that like button and get it to at least 50 likes, I will bring you a duel and or test time video for this deck, showing it in all its glory. We will have the Yourplaymat Arctics, I'll get there eventually, coming up for you as well. And we'll also have the Do-Re-Mi chords, or whatever they are now called, coming up as well. So stay tuned for that. And final shout out again, if you want your own custom sleeves, go and visit Your Custom Playmat. I will put the link in the description below, and you can follow our affiliate link. That will help us out massively as you go and purchase either their own artwork, or even if you fancy getting your own mat from them as well. They do produce some amazing, and the delivery is insanely fast. But, as absolutely always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.
Show yourself, Obelisk the Tormentor!
Shadow game as I call your name! Winged Dragon of Ra! I summon the almighty Swiper the Sky